Chapter 5: Why and How Unions are Organized. Why unions are formed. Alienation theory to realization. The alienation theory, based on the belief that employees might seek collective action to relieve their feelings of alienation. Employees become alienated from their work for the following reasons. They lost contact with their own labor, and the employees might become aware of their common plight, thereby lacking consciences, take pride in their work, could compel them lost involvement in their work together in a union or to engage in collective became estranged from fellow employees when their work made them so tired and competitive that they were incapable of having authentic relationships. Influences on employee votes for and against unions. In forming and joining a union, employees mainly consider whether the union will improve their personal situations in terms of wages and benefits, promotional opportunities, and job security. The union's campaign to secure employee support may contribute to a union vote. Union instrumentality. The employee's perception of whether the union will be instrumental in attaining desired outcomes, such as higher wages, improved working conditions, job security, protection from arbitrary treatment by management. An individual's decision on whether to vote for union representation depends on his or her subjective assessment of the benefits to be obtained as weighed against the subjective assessment of the cost. Organizing professional employees. Professional employees provide a fertile ground for increased unionization because professional employment has been growing rapidly. Evidence drawn from a study of collective bargaining agreements covering professional employees reveals that the overwhelming majority of contract provisions include subjects quite similar to those traditionally included in industrial sector agreements, such as provisions that include wages, fringe benefits, grievance, arbitration procedures, etc. Professional issues address collective bargaining agreements. Professional standards, mechanisms for professional participation in policymaking, regulation of professional work, training and professional development, commitment of organizational resources to professional goals, criteria for personal decisions, and the role of professionals in making these decisions. Activities of the union in organizing employees. Employee initial interest in unionization is usually based on their present dissatisfaction with some work-related situation coupled with a belief that each employee acting alone cannot change the current situation. The union does not create this dissatisfaction with working conditions among employees. Instead, it is the union's interest to improve job satisfaction among employees by negotiating to improve working conditions. Activities of the company in the union organizing. When employers realize they can convince their employees to give them a second chance, they engage in positive human resource management practices. Some examples of positive human resource management practices are job enrichment / enlargement, internal promotions, learning opportunities, bonus and merit pay, employee involvement programs, all of which seem to reduce non-union workers' desires to vote for a union in a representation election. Activities of the company in the union organizing. Employers enter the campaign with three advantages. It has instant and prolonged access to the employees. Although it can make no promises during election campaign, it informs employees of the possibility of improvement without the cost and without the creation of a new bureaucracy. It can take advantage of the fact that most people find the thought of substantial changes in their lives frightening. Employer campaign tactics attempt to avert an employee vote in favor of unionization. hiring labor lawyers, spreading rumors about loss of jobs, spreading rumors about plant or store closing, worker misclassification. One way in which employers can deny employees their legal rights is through worker misclassification. Example, classifying employees as independent contractors, self-employed, or leased workers. A representative of the Mason Contractors Association of America estimated that the worker misclassification reduces labor costs by 30%. However, law-abiding companies have to make up the difference and are placed at a competitive disadvantage. Methods for organizing unions. The three basic ways of organizing unions are through voluntary recognition, by far the simplest and least confrontational path to union recognition, often based on union authorization cards. NLRB directives. In rare cases, the NLRB may direct the employer to recognize and bargain with the union. Secret ballot elections. Pre-NLRB election union campaigns, filing a petition for election, election investigation and hearing, appropriate bargaining unit, eligibility of voters, untimely petitions, names and addresses, the election. Mandatory secret ballot elections versus Employee Free Choice Act. The Secret Ballot Protection Act was introduced in the U.S. Congress to require secret ballot elections for union certification. Voluntary union recognition by card check would be a prohibited practice, and the proposed legislation failed to pass. The Bipartisan Employee Free Choice Act was passed by the U.S. House of Representatives in 2007 and contained three major provisions. Three major provisions of the Employee Free Choice Act. The NLRB would be required to certify a union if a majority of employees sign union authorization cards which stated the employee wants the union to represent him or her. A procedure for reaching the first collective bargaining agreement could be invoked by either party if the two parties have not reached an agreement within 90 days to request mediation by the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service. If mediation is not successful, after 120 days a first contract would be subject to binding arbitration, resulting in a first contract in effect for a 2-year period. Penalties for employer violations of certain unfair labor practices committed during the union organizing campaign of the negotiation of the first contract would be increased. By Taylor Lewis.